So today we will be talking about struggling to learn as an artist, and to be fair, it will be also useful for those that struggle to learn in general, right? But artist is going to be a bit better because it is more specific in one sphere. Because if you just try to learn in general, study something, it may be something against your will, but as an artist, you have something that you like, which may be drawing, music, any art at all, right? So it's just a disclaimer. I'm not promising to help anyone, but I do promise that I will be at least of some help to artists. And that's a good point to make, because I don't promise to make life-changing advice on every artist, but I promise to make at least a good advice on majority of the artists, which is very important for you to trust me in that. Well, let's begin with the video. So the first problem, the step zero of all the things as an artist, is actually stress. I know it is widely talked about, but the fact is you may be really not focused on what they're talking about in general too. So if people talk about stress and then oh yeah, I'm stressed and stuff, you try to deal with it, but generally you just ignore it, then the thing is you have to actually deal with stress. I know it is uncomfortable, but I promise you, because you feel stressed during the learning or even during the drawing process or whatever the art you're doing, whatever the performance you're doing, right? Stress is going to be a big factor of you actually putting in effort, because there's been wide researches on stress, and many people seem to enjoy effort. Many people, they are called really insane when they say that, yeah, I love being frustrated when something does not work out, I love being tired and all that. But the problem is, majority, actually everyone who enjoys suffering and all this is just does not deal with stress at all. So why not just try to apply this to yourself? Of course, you're not going to enjoy the suffering, because I wish I could too, but I absolutely hate it. But what you are going to achieve is a better execution of the drawing, and you learning too. You're going to basically be able to put in more effort than usual, which is very important as an artist, right? So one thing to notice before doing everything is you're probably even tense right now, right? Sorry. You're probably tense right now. Your shoulders may be up, your chin may be slightly more, putting in more effort to bite, or your face, my thing is, hold on. My so my stress thing is I raise my eyebrows a lot when I'm stressed, and I unfortunately do it all the time. Like, I do this when I'm focused, many people have a mean face, like they grin and stuff. I have this, I don't know why, it's just passed to me genetically, but it is a indicator that I'm stressed all the time. When I see myself in other videos, I see doing that. And if you watch yourself from videos that are taken casually, you might also see yourself once again being tense, basically, right? Maybe your shoulders up, maybe your, I don't know, chin is clenched way too much, or maybe you do all these weird stuff with hands. I also do that when I'm stressed and stuff, when I'm nervous. But you will realize that you're doing this all the time. If you try to break the habit of, for example, doing this with your hands and what I basically listed, you will find that it's really difficult, and it's really difficult to get relaxed, because some people are naturally relaxed. They have relaxed face, they have relaxed posture and everything else, right? When you look at them, they speak slowly, they breathe in fully, and then you don't even understand how they do it. But if you try to do it, you feel that you're struggling a lot. You're basically struggling to relax, right? And that's a big indicator as an artist, because you need to let your mind roam free. You need to gather all these imagination, and you cannot do it when you're tense 24/7. You need to at least have a few minutes of you being relaxed, because that's the only way your imagination is going to be roaming free. You never ever really feel that creative when you're full of cortisol, when you're always in survival mode, right? So basically, when you're not relaxed, you're always in survival mode, and when you're in survival mode, you can't really learn stuff, just much less apply it, right? You can't really draw on canvas or play a music with all this cortisol. You need to be focused, and even though good cortisol can help you be focused, because stress basically shuts down other stuff that when you're relaxed and helps you focus on this situation. Too much stress, or bad cortisol, I don't know how to put it, but basically being chronically stressed and being chronically tense all the time is going to, oh fucking hell, what the fuck was it talking about? Hold on a second. My bad, hold on. Yeah, I remembered. Basically, you need to be in rest and digest mode rather than in survivor mode, right? And this stress is something that comes in manually when you focus, but too much stress that comes from the feeling of danger, feeling of worry, it's actually going to stumble your focus to learning and stuff, because it just takes away your other energy from other supplies, right? To basically put in the survival mode, which you do not need at the current moment. You need to learn, right? So that's the first thing to consider. You need to be relaxed. You need to learn to be relaxed, and it actually can be done in several days. So many people are traumatized. I'm not gonna be talking too much about trauma and stuff, but one thing I noticed is that many of the people that are traumatized can be helped without therapy in several days, and the way they do it is just convince their mind they're in safe mode, and there are many different ways of doing it. And turns out something related to stress is also the same. So being chronically stressed, especially when you're learning, is basically a factor of being worried all the time. And once you take away that factor, you will be really having all this freedom that you can't really describe, but that feeling of freedom and everything else is going to really help you with putting an effort onto learning and onto applying the learning stuff into practice, right? So of course you have to not only learn the theory, but you also have to be able to put in practice effectively as well, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is the feeling, the actual factors that make you chronically stressed, and also the other factors that make you unnecessarily put in effort into different stuff, waste your energy, and just not being able to focus while learning and not being able to apply it. So we're going to be talking about that specifically, not what causes it. We're going to be first talking about what causes it, but we're also going to be talking about what specifically do on it, right, on these problems. So the things that cause your worrying and chronic tension, especially when you're learning, or just your mind not being able to focus in general, it's not only just ADHD stuff, autism and all this stuff. Many people have it, and many people choose to accept that that's the thing that is really making them not being able to learn, which is partially true. The key word here is partially. It is not fully true. The actual thing is pressure on you, basically pressure on time. You are rushing through time, or some other pressure too, right? Perfectionism is also a really popular thing that is happening. Basically all the factors that I'm listing is something that happened to me and something that I dealt with personally, right? which means I basically do understand what the artists that are struggling going through, but I also researched some stuff into ADHD and autism and stuff, because I may not have it. I probably do have it, but I may not have it, and I researched it just in case. So let's begin. The thing that causes it is just perfection and pressure and all these factors that basically make you feel under danger, right? In some sense, it's not really danger, but if you look subconsciously on your brain perceives it as danger anyway. So if we treat it as danger and we remove that, it's going to have the same effect. So what we're going to do first is address what is exactly causing, right? Because I myself, when I let myself have mistakes, at first it really did feel the most stressed, which means I had this as a factor. I had the perfectionism as the factor of why I worried so much. But when I kept doing the mistakes, which we're going to be talking about later, like the freedom of mistakes and stuff, when I did that, when the pressure was gone, I was able to not feel the effort. So it just came in naturally. Basically, my mind figured out on what to do, and it just really felt less like effort and more like I don't know, just strategic action in general, right? So, I mean, it was still effort, but it was not something that was dangerous effort, right? Something not under danger, which feels like different type of effort, right? The so the thing to take away from here, the way to address your causes of what is causing your worry and depression and all this stuff is do the exact opposite of what your mind tells. If your mind wants to rush through a piece, you have to first make yourself take a lot of time on it and basically not finish it, right? So if a piece took several days to do, and then you're still not done, you feel the most pressure, that's how you know that's the cause, right? Or something else, you do some bad stuff on purpose, and then you see where you feel like it's the source of all this stress and pressure is going, right? So that's how you cause it. That's how you address the causes, and the way you deal with them after causing is lifting it off. So I'll basically talk about rushing, because that's what many people do, because perfectionism is also a factor of rushing, making it on time and all this stuff, right? And it is also similar. So what I'm going to be talking about here, you can actually apply to the other causes too, right? I'm going to talk about it later. I keep saying that, but I will, right? So the way you do it, so first of all, is just lift off the pressure. How do you do it? First of all, you do the exact opposite, and then you see how you feel like this on the subconscious level. What is really being triggered? Do you feel it in your stomach, or I don't know, do you feel the same way you did like when you got traumatized or something? You address these issues, and then what the fuck was I talking about? Oh my goodness. And then the way you lift off the pressure is basically gaslight your mind into not perceiving it as danger. So what many successful rehabilitated traumatic people do is they actually gaslight their mind into thinking that some very traumatic moment didn't happen. And it also applies to complex PTSD, right? The complex PTSD is something that is done over time, so it's not just one event that happened. It's more like a sequence of many events over a long time that basically kept eroding your mind over time, and at some point it became so traumatic that you can't bear it, right? So what they did was they took a situation that was similar to the dangerous one, and they imagined it to be completely safe. So they played a mini movie that basically said, oh, that didn't happen, right? So for example, I went to the room and then my dad beat me. No, it didn't happen. And they play a movie, and then he bought me an ice cream. I didn't do homework, and then he just said, it's okay, son, right? Something like that. They gaslight themselves into thinking that the most dangerous scenarios are safe, and literally over weeks it is basically fully resolved. But it also took into assumption that the environment they were didn't trigger it over time. So for complex PTSD, it's much more difficult, but still possible, as long as there is at least a temporary environment in which they feel safe, right? So first they had a safe environment, and they just lived their life in it until some situation caused a panic attack. Even a slight panic attack still was being referred to that PTSD event that happened, and they played a mini movie that basically said, and then this happened, and then the emotions, you basically alter what actually happened. So by doing that, they make their mind not replay those dangerous situations in their head, and actually by altering the emotions you feel about those similar situations, it will also address the traumatic situation as something much more positive than it really was, right? So basically it helps get over the patients with PTSD or complex PTSD, get over their thing that they're severely traumatized at. But you don't have to be severely traumatized to apply this movie thing to yourself too. If you're just really stressed from your work and you really need relaxing or stuff like that, and because of that you can't really learn and apply something related to your art, basically what you do is first get a safe environment, at least for a temporary time. You need to get an environment in which you feel completely safe and will have complete freedom. It really helps if you have a very good partner that understands what you're doing, because they're gonna really help you feel safe and stuff. It doesn't have to be a romantic partner, right? Just a close friend or someone like that works really fine. Then in that safe environment, you have to be relaxing, basically doing something, not only just sleeping, but also doing something that is interesting and not really mentally demanding until that moment clicks, right? The moment in which you feel at least a little bit but stressed, because basically any level of stress are related to some events in your life, and you have to find the source of what the stress correlates to, maybe some demanding pressure and all this stuff, and then you lift off this pressure by gaslighting your mind that every single one of these events were just led to no danger at all. It was completely safe, it was completely fun, and all this stuff, right? So for example, you go into some safe environment, maybe alone, right? You maybe take a day off or something like that, or during weekends you just spend your time alone. You do something that's not as mentally demanding, maybe just playing some video games, even though they are mentally demanding. I don't recommend doing that, or doing something else, basically just not stressful. You just let your mind do whatever it really wants to do in the moment. And then when you feel this random stress moment, you have to find its source. You can't close your eyes. Usually when I do this, I close my eyes and do something like this. I know it sounds stupid as hell, but even when I'm like walking from school to home and then some stress moment happens, I just close my eyes and do this to address I don't know how, but I can just not give a damn about the world for a few seconds. I do this, I don't care how weird I look, and then I source it to what actually happened in the past, click, and just gaslight myself into thinking that everything was safe there, that there was no pressure, even though the event itself was not as like traumatic or something. Even if it just had pressure, you just gaslight yourself into thinking it was completely safe. You just think, I was giving a school presentation, and instead of just thinking that you gave some very cringy line that everyone in the class literally had the physical reaction as a physical like, or you can visibly see that they were embarrassed, right? What the hell did you just say, or something like that. You just say, and then everything was fine. Everything was fine. You just completely block out this scenario in which the bad thing happened, and you alter your emotions. You don't block the emotions. You just alter it. You don't suppress the emotions, but rather you just feel positive thing until it just takes over the negative emotions, and then you do it over weeks and just months. Months is on over exaggeration, right? Weeks is enough for you to lift off these very huge traumatic stuff. Not like completely. For some cases it was completely, but if you were literally in the Vietnam War or something, of course it's not gonna be lift off in weeks. But even then, you're going to feel much better. It's gonna be a significant improvement, and by doing that, you will, assuming you address the causes of your stress and all this demanding stuff correctly, you will feel so much better. And when you sit down and watch a tutorial on how to learn, say, perspective and stuff, and then you do and sit and maybe with them or maybe afterwards, and then you feel stuck at something, you're not gonna feel this pain of trying to rewatch it again, because it's not gonna be as mentally demanding. Even though those traumatic events are unrelated to this, they still all feel like danger. And if you just make the general sense of danger disappear in your head and to make it more like, I don't know, a challenge or something that is exciting, of course you're not basically gonna find every learning fun, but at least you're going to put in more effort into learning and feel much more calm and safe in doing that. There's also one more thing I want to talk about, is how people with relaxed mind act, right? So when you see those royal families, right, they have this passed down generational house and wealth and all this, they act so calm. There's a stereotype that royal people are retarded and they're overspoiled and stuff, but not really. They think long term, right? And I want you to also apply this thinking of just not worrying about not getting it right away, but thinking in long term, right? So what I do is I open a notes app, and whatever I have a goal on, I just say do this, do this, do this. But at the end, I always include. So there's something called 3A, tactical 3A, which is act, assess, adjust, which just means you do something, you get a response on how you did it, and then you adjust, which means you just edit what you did, and then you keep doing it again. Because by doing that, when I keep it at the end of the notes app, I just remind myself I need to keep acting no matter how stuck I feel. If I just keep acting and keep adjusting, I will find something that just by trying to figuring it all out, I wouldn't have realized it, right? So the point is, I forgot what I was talking about, but the point I wanted to make is you have to be really thinking calm. It doesn't mean that you have to like work very little. You have to work a lot if you want to improve your skills, or if you have some very huge goal that you want to do. In your case, just do whatever work feels like, because you don't want to get a burnout that's just gonna stunt your growth. You just work whatever it feels like, but you quite literally work a lot, but you don't rush through it. Because if you rush through it, first of all, you're not gonna save any time at all, and second of all, your mind is not going to learn new stuff anyway. So next time when you're sitting through a drawing, I want you to think of it as more long term, and just think to yourself that this piece does not have to be perfect. All I'm doing is going through a stepping stone. It's just the assessment of my skills. So you find some inspiration, you want to draw it in your style or something, you sit down, you see the mistakes, you just calmly erase and try again, or just leave it out if it didn't happen for many hours, and learn whatever you want to do. And then you spend 4 hours a day just completely unrushed. You see, you take your breaks and do all this. You basically don't have a worry in your mind, and that, strangely enough, is going to lead to results much faster than if you rush through the whole process. If you just set and today I will be only learning, and I want to learn this in a week. I will make a challenge to learn this in a week. If you worry about time, guess what? You're gonna worry about time and not the process. If you worry about the process and not worry about the time, you're gonna be fully committed to the process, and this pressure of making it on time is going to disappear. So I want you to really think like a royal family, which does not rush through anything, thinks more longer term, and then thinks, oh, in a couple of generations, my grandkids is going to have this house or something. Or just the way they act in general, they don't have a worry. Even if some stressful situation happens with their royal, say, British accent, they just say, oh, it's okay or something, right? Some very stressful traffic happens, you don't see them really stressed. You just see them, you just ask them, why are you not stressed or something. What they reply with is, why does it matter? We're still gonna get home anyway. See how they do not care about the time and the rushing and all this, because yeah, of course they already figured out, they already have success and all this stuff, but this whole mindset of not rushing is what has gotten to reach the success in the first place. So it still is not good if you just do not apply this mindset to yourself. And if you just keep thinking like a rushing worker, guess what? You're gonna get results as a rushing worker, right? Like a single mom looking for jobs and all this stuff. She rushes through all this stuff, and then she thinks, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. And by the time I do this, I also need to do that. She does not spend her time on herself. She never relaxes it. She does, I don't know, 2 jobs or something, but she's still poor, right? I'm not telling for a single mom to just not rush through the life when she needs to, because of course if the situation demands it, you have to rush. But in your case, you still have to be thinking longer term, and while you're in the process of art, you need to not rush through the process at all. Just don't worry about the time. And if you do that, I promise you, you will learn stuff so much better, right? So take perspective, for example. When you're drawing, perspective is such a difficult thing, and then you do know what the vanishing point is, but you do not know how to draw these lines, and then how to make the 3D, like very difficult shapes onto all this perspective and all this stuff. But you just take your time and sit through the process and just digest this information. It's something you just don't understand, just go back 10 seconds and learn it. See, you take your time, and even if you're not rushing, you are going to be learning faster, because that's what really royal families do. They just learn faster, they get the results faster by not thinking about the time, but by investing more in the process, right? And of course it is very difficult if you're stressed, and for example, if you're just learning and stuff, it is really stressful to think, oh my goodness, I have to watch the 10 more seconds and all this stuff. It's okay, right? Once again, if you think longer term, in 10 days you will no longer have this problem anyway, right? If you just use my thing of getting into a safe environment, and when the clicks is just, you're going to be replaying this movie and stuff, you're just going to gaslight yourself into such a level that this no longer becomes a problem in 10 days, right? If you're thinking a longer term, this is going to still work out. So whenever you feel overwhelmed, of course, just relax and all this stuff. But even when you're feeling slightly stressed and stuff, just take your time anyway, right? You're thinking longer term, that's what matters. And if you're feeling stressed through all this learning and applying process, you're going to defeat it in the long term anyway. So just get through it, right? I know it's difficult. I've been through this, and I'm still through some of the difficult learning processes, right? How the clothes fold, how the texture works. To be fair, I quite nailed how the texture works, but uh, in drawing, right? But still the clothing folds still feel difficult to me. But what I really found worked out for me the most is this process. I really relate to all these artists that struggle to learn. And even though I'm no scientist, I hope you still feel very close. You still feel that this advice is somewhat, at least somewhat useful, right? Because I've been in your situation, and no amount of research without all this practice stuff is going to work out. I've basically practiced all this traumatic and stressful stuff, right? So what I'm saying is, just I hope you trust me, because I've been through this also. I'm also going through this stuff, and I'm telling you, if I can do it, so can you, right? And one thing before you leave, yeah, my mind is very scattered. I originally scripted it just learning the cause and how to solve the issue, which is basically the safe environment and all this stuff. But I also decided to include the not rushing stuff, because this is also the advice that helped me. So I hope it didn't feel way too chaotic. In case it does, I will make more videos in the future anyway. I'm gonna be addressing these problems, so next time is gonna be better and stuff. But I hope that you got the advice that you looked for. So yeah, see ya.